Welcome back to the Pain Game. The band is back together. We are going to Saudi Arabia this Saturday for Riyadh season. It's Bivol versus Beterbiev, one of the greatest fights in boxing. And not only that, the card is going to be absolutely stacked. And as with every Riyadh season card, you can catch it on DAZN using our link, DAZN.com/TrueGeordie. Not only will you get 7-day free trial of DAZN for any pay-per-view purchase, but you can also watch me and the lads during the pay-per-view, because we are back commentating again as your alternative commentary on DAZN. So hopefully you select the boys when you're watching the pay-per-view. Lads, we're going to talk about Chris Eubank to start off with, because at 35 years old and after a few chances at the very top level and a few tests failed, to me, this feels like a pivotal moment in his career. I'm going to start with Loza. What do you make of that, mate?
Yeah, I've said it many times before. I feel as if he's kind of wasted his career because he's come from such a big name. You know, he could have really maximized that and, you know, took every opportunity, but he's kind of been living the high life, really. He's not been head in the game in boxing, which he should have been. And, you know, he is 35, and I just feel as if, where's he been? That's my first thing. Like, where has he been? It just seems crazy because I've heard the talks of him fighting this one and that one, but he just needs to get down and fight. Boxers need to be active. And it's just, I just think it's been disappointing, really. Even after, you know, he lost to Liam Williams and then he came back, beat him in the rematch. That was a perfect opportunity to absolutely, you know, springboard off that opportunity, you know, that performance, should I say. And he just wasted it. He disappeared. I don't know where he goes off and lives the high life. But I think right now, at the age of 35, he doesn't just need to win. He needs to go out there and put on a good performance, because calling out, you know, Canelos and stuff like that, going off the way he's been fighting, even the Liam Williams fight, it wasn't a performance. Liam Smith, sorry.
Yeah.
Liam Smith, sorry. Yeah. Even off that performance, you wouldn't look at it and go, you know, he's got the potential of competing with Canelo, because the way he fought against him, Canelo would just dispatch of him. It's that simple. A completely different animal. But yeah, I just feel like he's wasted his career. It's really important that, you know, he puts on a good performance and stays in the game. But I do still think he's got a chance, although he's 35. I still think he's got time on his side. He's the type of guy, from what I've seen, he doesn't drink, he doesn't abuse his body, even though he's enjoying himself. I think he does look after himself. I've never really seen him out of shape. So he still has got a chance, but it's important that he goes out there and puts on a good performance.
One thing that worried me, lads, is in a recent DAZN clip, he mentioned the talks of him fighting Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor has been talking about fighting Terence Crawford. Conor McGregor was recently pictured FaceTiming with Turki Al-Sheikh. So, you know, he's desperate. He's only got a couple of UFC fights left on his contract to jump into the boxing game and to finish, his career with as much money in the bank as possible. KG, you've often mentioned to me that Eubank should be a misfit style fighter, someone who doesn't chase belts, but just puts on the biggest fights possible. Is that something you'd want to see, or do you want to see him give it more of a go in the pros?
I'll be honest with you, it's a disgrace, man. I've been talking to, I actually have to be real. It's a disgrace, man. I've been talking to, I know a couple people that are part of his camp.
What are you knowing about the camp? Tell me what you heard.
What I know about the camp is, I asked them, where are we going with this? What's the plan for this fighter? And the names that I hear make me sick. You know, you hear the first, Conor Benn is one of the names. Then you hear another, what's his biggest adversary that he
Why does that make you sick though?
Billy Joe
Saunders.
Explain why it makes you sick.
Because Billy Joe Saunders is in his own battle with his own self. He ain't going to be fighting anytime soon. Yeah. So that doesn't make any sense. The next fighter is Conor Benn. I don't think Conor Benn is anywhere near being sanctioned to fight anywhere. So you got two fighters that are in no man's land. And then now you added another name that makes it even worse. Conor McGregor, the same guy that I saw trying to wrestle Bukayo Saka. He doesn't look anywhere near a ring. He doesn't look anywhere near serious to get involved in this game. Now the name that I was calling out on the phone, I was like, brother, why are you not fighting Hamza? This doesn't make sense. Hamza Sheeraz, if you wanna make a chink in your armor, you're talking about the ambassador. You're talking about the face, the main guy that's gonna be the face of this Riyadh season, and how Turkey feels about him. If you're the man, beat up that man. Because that will change the whole game, and that will really shift the focus, because everyone thinks he's the boogeyman. But you lot don't want to do it. When we get into that thing, they're saying, well, we're not in a space, we don't need to fight him, we're on a higher level than him. His star is rising. You might as well take him down now before he gets more experience and becomes more dangerous. Kind of like how Mayweather realized when to clip Canelo's wings. So it's still Canelo's star rises, and you're that guy that's beating him. You're telling me this Hamza guy, the more this guy keeps going, is more is a problem. Get that notch on your belt, and you can go on to major fights. And they're not fighting Canelo. I don't see him fighting anyone of worth, and that's why I think it's disgraceful.
Okay, I'm going to put this to Joy then. There's been a rejection of an offer for Canelo. We already know he flat out rejected the money that they offered, saying that he wanted more. He's rejected, we know, 5 million for Hamza Sheeraz, which is a lot of money. What do you make of that, mate?
I think it's definitely about money at this point in his career for Chris Eubank Jr. I think some careers are driven by money. Some careers are driven by actually winning accolades and picking up titles. And some careers start with one or the other, and it ends up changing as they go through. I'm sure Chris Eubank Jr. would have started off his career feeling like he was going to go on and win world titles, and like he was going to be fight out at world level. But it hasn't really transpired that way. And I think at 35 years old, like you say, now he's at a point in his career where he is going to go after money fights. That's why, unprompted, he brung up Billy Joe Saunders' name to an interviewer that had never even heard of Billy Joe Saunders in an interview that I saw recently. And the reason for that is because he knows that Billy Joe Saunders makes for a perfect dance partner, generates loads of media interest and therefore more money. And realistically, you're fighting a guy who's coming off of a loss, the sofa, and really going to be having to drain himself down to weight if you were to pick that fight. Now, when you speak about the Hamza Sheeraz fight, it's funny, right? Because sometimes what you have is a rising star, and you want to pit your rising star against someone to get their scalp and to get their name on the record. And other than money, it doesn't make much sense. Now, you've just said about 5 million he's turned down for that, right? So you would assume that the money would therefore make sense as well, because that's going to be Eubank Jr.'s highest payday. I don't see a fight in which he's earned more than that, including the George Groves one in the World Boxing Super Series. I'm not sure whether he would have or not, but it would be right up there. But what we're overlooking here is it's not just money, because if you're turning it down and you're saying, I'm not bothered about that, well, Hamza Sheeraz is ranked at number 1. Hamza Sheeraz, if you beat Hamza Sheeraz, your next fight is for a world title. So you either want the money or you want the glory. But what I'm saying is, you can take the money in a Hamza Sheeraz fight, and your next fight is going to be for a world title if you win that fight. And not only that, right? Listen, Chris Eubank Jr. is a supremely confident individual, and I'm not saying I'd make him a favourite, but I'm saying that Chris Eubank Jr. should be looking at that Hamza Sheeraz fight and thinking, I can get the better of this guy. Yes. I think that Ammo Williams showed us enough moments in that Hamza Sheeraz fight. And I think that Bradley Skeet in the past and other fighters have shown us enough moments to think that it's not out of the realms of possibility that you're going to be able to stop this guy on his rise.
To your point, Joey, if you're 35 years old and really you're, in terms of as a boxer, Eubank is at his best that he's ever been, in my opinion. After that Liam Smith fight, it was one of his best performances, right? And he's not going to get any better. He's only going to get older, right? If you don't fancy the Hamza Sheeraz fight now, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? All right. Then give up on any world belt, any Canelo, any of that, unless they give you the crazy money that Chris Eubank thinks he's worth, despite not having a massive win in his entire career. And just do the Conor Benn fight then.
You know what's funny?
That's what they're setting up for.
What's funny is, so obviously on the inside information, the Canelo offer was derisory. They said that was a joke. Like what Canelo was giving them, it didn't make sense. They was up for the Canelo fight.
Okay, to your point, they offered him less money than he was offered for the Conor Benn fight. So that's where they were like,
but
well,
Canelo wasn't buying a belt off him. He wasn't buying a belt off him. If you can't compare the money that Canelo gave to Billy Joe Saunders, for example, because Billy Joe Saunders was a legit world champion.
No, it's not that. It's about what the name is.
In a belt in doing so.
No, but it's not that. It's what
it's not, mate. It's not what the name is. Eubank Jr. is probably not a bigger name than Billy Joe Saunders.
No, but they said that he's less than Caleb. They're looking at him. I think they offered him less than they was giving Caleb. Like Canelo said, basically, have this. We don't really know you. But then one thing for sure is, if you put Canelo and Eubank Jr. in a room, the way they would sell that fight, it would literally take off. It'd be explosive, really, if we're being honest. It would get the attention.
It would be great.
It would be explosive. So they're saying, well, what we know we can bank and what we know we can bring to the party on the setup, we're worth more than this. I kind of understand that. One thing we do know is, because he did get offered, there was the Janibek one. It's not about a world title. Now it's literally about money, because Janibek was offered and they said, well, we're not really interested in taking that. We don't want to do that fight. So I know for sure, and that's why I talk about I don't understand his career. His career is one that is, and while I feel it's a disgrace, but obviously I'm a man of the fan and I want to see him hold a world title and say he's hit that highest level. While they're thinking, no, we're in it for the money. It's Canelo, it's Conor, it's these types of fights. And if it's not about the money, we're not interested. The only one that does get interest, and I think this is why they're out in Riyadh, because they're still trying to dangle that carrot to Canelo's team to say, look at what I can do. This is literally a marketing campaign. Go out there, mash him up, and they can offer me more money. But they don't want no part of it. I don't see them wanting no part of Time's Up.
I just don't think any of his career, from them losses, a while back, none of his career makes sense. Like, Joe, you were saying about, early on in his career, he would have had the goal to become a world champion. Now it's about the money. But in that middle ground, I don't know when his mind changed, because he had a few losses and then just disappeared. Why wasn't he still not trying to get those world titles? And even now, like you've just said, if he beats Hamza, it's a direct route to becoming a world champion and he's going to make money. I just think, you say he's a supreme, confident man, but I've been listening to his interviews recently and I don't think he's as confident as he once was. He's talking about, he doesn't want to get into these big fights when he's had time out. He's only had a year out the ring, you know what I mean? That's not really a long time. Modern day fighters, fight a couple of times a year when you're at the highest level. If he's the man that he says he is, always been in the gym, it shouldn't really be a problem. And like we've said, the longer he waits for the likes of Hamza, he's only going to get better, more mature. It's going to be a harder task.
But the main thing that I would touch on here is the presence or the lack of presence of Bomac in the corner, because I think that we can all agree, not only was the Liam Smith rematch probably a career best win for Chris Eubank Jr., it was the best he's looked in terms of boxing to instructions as well. Like, he showed a really good jab in that fight. He put his combinations together well. He showed maturity beyond what he had showed in fights before in terms of when he did get Liam Smith hurt. And he's understanding that this is a wily veteran who's done the rounds with lots of fighters and got through crisis moments against the likes of Munguia and Canelo Alvarez. He didn't actually empty the clip on him like you'd seen him do in fights gone by. So I think that he showed a lot of maturity there. And when we had seen the relationship that was just starting to form there with Bomac, it almost felt like finally, after years of trying Adam Booth, Roy Jones Jr., every big name trainer would probably look at the prospect of working with Chris Eubank Jr. and feel it was an appealing one, and he's never been able to stick with anyone. So I'd love to see him have Bomac in his corner now for this little run until the end of his career, but it's not happening.
Yeah. Do you reckon Bomac is affected by the jailed visit that he had?
I don't think so. The way Eubank worded the why Bomac, there's been some issues, and I just immediately thought, this guy can't get along with fucking anyone, can he? And look, it might be genuinely just that the legal issues, but Eubank lives in Vegas. What the fuck are we doing here? The fight's in Saudi. What's that got to do with you having a problem in the UK? So immediately it dawned on me that it is probably more likely to be Eubank being his usual self and not being able to get along with trainers. And going back to the point Loza made of where is Chris Eubank? Where has he been? I think that it comes back to his dad's name. This has been the gift and a curse of his career, because when you know that the Eubank name can fast track you, you don't feel the urgency that these other fighters do in order to keep fighting on and keep climbing the rankings. Rankings don't apply to Chris Eubank. You will get a title shot with Canelo without really showing he deserves it, if we're being honest. So The question for the Canelo fight for me is why they want more money. It's like, where is the fight? Because we already know Canelo in America can sell out just fighting a fucking broomstick. But if Canelo came to the UK and did Wembley against Eubank and wanted really something extra big, well then that, Riyadh season style, well then we're talking a whole nother level, in which case Eubank could get the people's imagination, could talk the fight up, could have a big finish to his career, even if Canelo bashes him all over. Mate, it's a legacy-defining fight. At least say you had a proper world title fight. His dad had 24 world title fights.
See, now all of a sudden you've done something there, because if you're telling me that in Wembley, and you know he's worth let's have it right, guys. He is worth the billion when it comes to, when it actually starts and the whole thing together. Canelo's on a quest not to fight who he's meant to fight. Canelo wants to fight everybody else. But so this fight is in front of him. Canelo just mentioned Conor McGregor as well. And this is not like scumbag names, yeah, but, or to quote Chris Eubank himself, but these are not names that you really expecting. So both of you are saying, I want a nice, simple payout. I want a good day out where everyone looks at me and says, oh, look how great he is. And they're made for each other. It's an easier fight for you. It's a big fight for you. You get paid. We do it on the main stage. And I'm telling you, the people will come out for that one. I've seen Canelo fight like that.
It's assuming it's not that. All of the noises are that Conor Benn somehow expects to be back in the ring soon, and that is the fight they're going to make.
That's what he said.
What do you make of that? I mean, we were kind of hyped for it the first time round. Is the appetite still there when you've seen Conor Benn not look as devastating, in his fights after his suspension? What do you make of it, lads?
I think stylistically it makes for a great fight. I do honestly believe that the Conor Benn against Chris Eubank Jr. fight will be a really good one. I think that if you look at Conor Benn in those comeback fights where he's fought around middleweight, maybe in between middle and light middleweight, he doesn't look like he has the same amount of punch power there as he did have before. But I do think that we need to step away and see a maybe 10 fight sample rather than 2s to draw a conclusion. Sometimes guys that are used to getting their opponents out of there can go on 3-4 fight runs, and without the context of a failed drugs test or controversy around it, we don't really question the fact that they haven't got their opponent out of there. So I'm not ready to write off the possibility that Conor Benn does still have the power to be able to dispatch of welterweights, possibly even light middleweights. But I do think that in Chris Eubank Jr., despite us seeing a little bit of frailty after he had been somewhat weight drained against Conor Benn the first time round and then gone on to fight Liam Smith, I don't think he's going to respect Benn's power all that much. And I think that you'll see more of a Chris Eubank Jr. that we saw on his little run with Sky Sports, for example, like the Spike O'Sullivan fight. I think you'll see a Chris Eubank Jr. that's a lot more willing to stand there and bang with a fighter like Conor Benn.
Eubanks has got to a stage where he's just got really comfortable. I just know, 2-3 years ago, he wouldn't have said, I've had a year out of the ring. I need a little bit more time before I get in with this guy or that guy. Yeah. I just think he's lost that drive and motivation. I think he's putting off a lot of these fights. And I think it's because he doesn't really fancy him. I don't think he fancies Hamza. And I think even the Conor Benn, I don't think he fancies it as much. I think he's made a lot of excuses with the whole drug side of things. And, I'm not being funny. If it was me, if I was getting in there with a smaller man, who was a drug cheat, I wouldn't be that bothered. He always talks about his chin. He's now fought Liam Smith and been put down, so he now knows that he's not as, he's human now.
No, I feel we're doing him a disservice. That was literally because he was weight trained. We never saw anything like that again. It's someone that was, and it's what his dad was saying.
That's going to happen again against Ben.
It's going to be the same scenario. No, because they won't fight at the catchweight that they was going to fight at before. Last time they was fighting at a dangerous weight that was never going to suit him, and that's why his dad was coming out and saying everything he said. I think what they're doing right now is it's that position that, and hindsight's 2020, right? But look at Dillian. Dillian took the risk and fought in Eddie Hearn's garden against Povetkin, and it all came tumbling down. All the money he was meant to make, he lost in terms of he played a bad hand, he played a bad card. And what he's saying right now is, I'm in a position as Eubank, if I fight Hamza and get smoked, I don't play a good hand. If the Canelo fight, all these fights that I've got, the Conor fight, it's kind of there, but it's not there the way it once was. Everyone has that mystique around my name. Yes, I had the Smith thing, but everyone understands the weight training situation. I'm in a good position. No one's looking at me as a loser. I'm worth money. And this is all it is. Right now, he's protecting his investment.
I have to agree with Loza in terms of you're 35 and you're needing warm-up fights after a year out the ring. That does not add up, right? No. So I do think that the lack of hunger is there. I think what this is now is he needs Sheeraz to come in, be a punching bag, which I think is, not really, Sheeraz is not bad, but we're expecting Eubank to get, he's there to be beaten, right? That's the whole point of why they picked this guy. He's a credible name, but he's there to be beaten. He absolutely needs to win this in style. Otherwise, you can forget everything. This is a banana skin potentially, but I'm not expecting it to become that. And I think strategically, he wants to go Conor Benn, then Canelo, then hang the gloves up, sort of thing. Really, then make as much money as he can. The problem is if he stumbles against Conor Benn, even that could easily happen, right? And Hamza Sheeraz, can I just say right now, I think is a terrible, terrible idea. Stay the fuck away.
I think Hamza Sheeraz is a terrible idea for anyone, to be fair.
Yeah, I think Hamza Sheeraz has beaten everyone, with a pulse at that weight class. But I understand what you lads have said. If you're going to take it, then earlier the better, because that's your best hope. I don't see that working out. I think the biggest problem for Chris Eubank in his career has been his lack of punching power. I think he's got a lot of good qualities, but he just, even against Liam Smith, with all the injuries in that rematch, you could tell Liam Smith was a shell of himself. Yeah. And yet Eubank really just couldn't hurt him the way Liam hurt him in the first fight.
Yeah. I do think that potentially if he fails to really, really impress in this next fight, but does manage to get the win, that might even open up more doors for him. You might get the likes of a Conor Benn sat there ringing Eddie Hearn's phone saying, get me him at all costs right now. You might have Hamza Sheeraz say the exact same to Frank Warren, and therefore you might have Turki Al-Sheikh and the guys over in Saudi even push harder for that fight, and that potentially be something we can see, because at the end of the day, money does talk, and I wouldn't even rule out the possibility of that fight happening. But I do just want to credit it before we move on from that fight. In Sheeraz Mehta, he hasn't got a gimme fight, I don't think, by any means. He's unbeaten in his last 6-7 fights. If you look at his fights against Golovkin, which was a old Golovkin that had just come off the back of a questionable decision against Derevenchenko, and then obviously against Munguia, who was sort of blitzing through everyone at the time. Yeah, they're two fights that he got stopped in, but he's been way more active than Chris Eubank. And also, it's like, now and especially within sort of the last few months where we've been out there, we've tasted Riyadh season ourselves, we've got a real understanding of it. I think now more than ever, people are really rocking up to fight week and approaching their fights, understanding that this is golden ticket territory now. Yeah. And that is not just if you look how Joseph Parker has now gone on this run of form. Look how Ajit Kabayel has gone on a run of form. Look how Mark Chamberlain, and there's so many guys that weren't really in the plans. They weren't really in the forefront of our minds, and they've gone on to these Riyadh season cards. They've started off probably putting in potentially upset wins or just really unexpected good performances, and it's winner stays on, and they've had this opportunity. So I just want to say that although we expect Eubank to come through this fight, I do think it's a banana to him.
Can we be honest? If there's one thing that Riyadh season has absolutely exposed, it's fighters who cherry pick their opponents.
Everyone.
And my God, Chris Eubank loves to do that. And the ones who've avoided certain style matchups.
And if there's one thing it's shined a magnifying glass on, it's who's hungry and who's not hungry.
Yeah.
And what he did do that I have to give him credit for is he took over the press conference. We're there to see a unified fight. Like, we're here to see Bataviev, and he took over. It was about Eubank, and it should never have been, but he did it in that moment.
Thank fuck we did.
Yeah, he's the biggest star in the room. Chris Eubank, it's mental that he is, because the level of accolades and achievements of the main event is ridiculous. But he swallowed up all of the oxygen in the room and made the whole show about him. And you know what? I've got to give him credit for that, because, you know, as much as we've been frustrated about his career, you know the game. A lot of these fighters don't know the game. They don't understand that this is show business, and he absolutely gets it. And that's why he would be the perfect dance partner for a Canelo if that Wembley fight happens. We'll wrap this up there. We will be talking about this on Fight Night. Don't forget, everyone, the DAZN pay-per-view link is in the description below. October 12th, Saturday night. Whether you watch us on the Pain Game on YouTube, we're also on Twitter. We're also on the pay-per-view as your alternative commentary. We'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Cheers.